Hi, everyone. Wow, it's so nice to see so many of you all here already. So welcome to the Vercel Community Session today. We're really excited to have you here. If this is your first time in one of our sessions, hi, I'm Pauline. I'm one of your moderators for today's session, and joining me is Amy. You may have seen us around in the community space or on X or LinkedIn, Reddit. So this is always a really good opportunity for all of us to connect with our community, our customers, and our users live. Drop in a message in the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm already seeing so many people from all over the world, which is super exciting. If this is your first time joining us today and you can't see the chat, no worries. All you need to do is head over to community.vercel.com and you should see a banner that advertises this session. If you go on that and sign in with your Vercel account and click going in the event box, this should unlock the chat.
And just a quick reminder, if you are participating in the chat, to follow our code of conduct. Basically, TLDR, be nice to each other. With that out of the way, I would like to welcome our special guest for today, our CEO, G. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's my first time here at the community session, so I'm really excited.
Yes, it's your first ever community session. I'm so excited to have you. I just wanted to share a funny story. So back in 2021, I actually wanted to do a podcast episode with you, G. I even posted about it on X, so there is proof that
finally happened.
Yes, and it's so great to have this actually finally happen years later. So let's just kick off. We have a couple of questions already here that we've curated from the community. But again, if anyone has questions for G, drop them in the chat. So our first one is, what caused Vercel to shift focus from the front-end clouds to the AI cloud?
Yeah, so over the last 10 years, I think we've been building for the web. And a lot of us that started Vercel were web developers, right? Like we were interested in creating the best possible developer tools, frameworks to ship what I would call pixels on the internet. And pixels on the internet are going to continue to be really important, right? Like human-centric interfaces, storefronts, experiences on the web where you're getting to interact directly with a screen, with a page, with a web application. But increasingly, I think we're going to go into a world of tokens. I think we've been using this meme internally that we're going from pixels to tokens. And a world of tokens means experiences that are more like background rather than foreground, right? Like going from the front end to the back end. And so when you hear us talking about the AI cloud, we're talking about that shift, right? We're talking about going from the human is directly interacting with the screen to the human is interacting with an agent, and that agent will go and solve a problem for you. Maybe that agent will use the web. We've seen this a bunch with computer use tools. We've seen it with browser use tools where the agent actually browses the web on your behalf, the web of pixels. But increasingly, agents will be talking to other agents over protocols that are quote unquote invisible, like MCP. And so we want to set up our developer community for success for the new world, the new internet, this internet of tokens and agents. And the really cool thing is that you were talking about, asking me in 2021 for joining your podcast. If I remember, like, okay, what were people asking for Vercel to do over the past few years? It always has been, hey, Vercel, please give me more backend tools. Give me the ability to run tasks for a long time. And so this is a cool convergence of things that our customers and developers have wanted for a long time, which is let me ship my backend, my full stack application to Vercel, and also this exciting new internet of AI and agents.
While we're talking about shifting things, we made a big announcement yesterday about the Pro plan and some of the changes there. Do you want to talk more about what changes are happening and why we made that change?
Yeah, speaking of the world of AI, anytime you interact with an AI platform or, for example, the Vercel AI Gateway, or you use models on the internet, you've probably noticed that everything is metered on a per token basis, right? You might use a AI agent session and you exit it and it tells you you've used 1,003 tokens. So we're entering a world in which intelligence is on tap. Everything happens on demand. You get more demand for V0 generations, you use more tokens. You don't work during the weekend, you use 0 tokens. And so the internet has been in this trajectory, the cloud has been on this trajectory towards you pay for what you use in a very concrete, direct feedback loop, where I, as a developer, if I use a bunch of compute, if I use a bunch of data transfer, and if I use a bunch of AI tokens, I need to know exactly what happened in real time in order to optimize my application, in order to make sense of the cost of my application. And so with this new pricing model, we're fully embracing this usage model that's credit-based. And so you pay us $20 and you know exactly, how much resources you can use with those $20. We've also heard from our community that when things are based on this pay-as-you-go model, you really want to keep track very closely of your usage. You want to prevent runaway usage. So we had shipped an initial version of a spend management because we're always listening to our community. So when people said, hey, like this bad scenario could happen to me, hey, here's the spend management. But now we're enabling it by default for everybody. So that's really, really exciting. You basically upgrade to the new Pro model and you get all these benefits of not just the credit-based usage model, but also spend management enabled by default. I believe I saw someone comment on the internet, so take it with a grain of salt, that we might be the first cloud, general purpose cloud platform where you can deploy applications that also has hard caps, meaning you can opt in to pause your application entirely if it reaches a certain threshold of spend, which is really, really cool. And the other two really nice things is free viewer seats. We heard a ton of feedback from our community that, the superpower of Vercel is that you're constantly deploying your ideas, your iterations, your branches, your previews, and you might hand that to a non-developer colleague. So you might hand that preview URL to a client, you might hand it to a friend, you may hand it to a prospective user or customer. And why would they have to pay for a seat? Doesn't make a lot of sense. So seats are for people that are actually shipping changes to the projects. And that's reflected on the developer role. So if someone is a developer, they pay for the seat, but if they're not. So that's already been super well received by our community because this has been on the backlog for quite some time. And then what else am I missing? I think there's a fourth. We have free viewer seats. Anyways, you'll probably have the blog post handy for me, but overall, super excited about what we're being internally calling New Pro.
Yeah, so exciting. Yeah, we've already got a couple of questions and feedback in that new Pro thread that we have in the community, and I'm sure someone in our team will post that in the chat if anyone wants to learn more. So I'm just going to shift gears a little bit. A question that has come up several times across our different platforms has been, so Vercel has acquired several teams. So Turbo Reaper, for example. How does Vercel decide when to buy versus build?
Yeah, and by the way, I just remembered, or I looked up the post. No more contact sales for developers is the other way. I forgot possibly about the one that I'm most excited about. A lot of the feedback from the community was like, I don't want to press a contact sales button to get something as fundamental as like SAML enabled on my projects. So we're giving people more and more enterprise features on a self-serve basis. And actually, I would say like this was a fundamental intent behind a lot of the pricing evolution is developers should be able to grow on our platform pretty much unconstrained. And I mentioned on X, like, this is true to my philosophy, how I see the world as a developer. I almost never want to talk to anybody. Like I just want to go and like ship. So very, very excited about that. And actually there is a interesting segue into your question, which is like, how do we think about expanding the product offering? How do we think about acquisitions? How do we think about open source? Number one, my main philosophy is if we're going to go into a new product surface, if we're going to extend the product surface, it has to be a legitimate adjacency to the business. Meaning, it's not that there's a lot of exciting things that I would like to do. Like maybe like we can start like a coffee line, Vercel Coffee. Vercel acquires Phil's Coffee. It'd be pretty cool.
Imagine.
But, actually, I would love to. But if we announce, hey, Vercel is starting a coffee brand, people might like raise their eyebrows, right? Whereas if we say, hey, Vercel is helping you ship backends and MCP servers, and we're giving you an AI gateway because the vast majority of applications that people are building today are AI applications, then people are like, yeah, that makes sense. So number one is it has to make sense for what our community needs, what they're building, and our perspective of the future. The other thing that we like to do at Vercel is that if we have a problem ourselves, we build products. If we really, really, really like our solution, we put it out into the world. And only if it meets that internal high bar where we can tell the world that story of like, hey, we had that pain and we're sharing the solution with you because we're open and because we like to share our solutions with our customers, then we do it. So there's a couple good examples there. When we built V0, we had to build a bunch of AI infrastructure that became our AI cloud. We built the AI SDK as a framework. We built the AI gateway because we were having a lot of issues with scaling tokens and running into rate limits and things like that. We're talking about Turbo Repo. We're seeing with ourselves and our customers that this front-end code bases were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I actually remember a great conversation I had with Tobias, the creator of Webpack, when he joined Vercel. And I remember him telling me like, look, I created this project. I put it out into the world. And little did I know that it was going to take over the entire ecosystem, that I was going to have the world's biggest companies file issues on GitHub saying like, please help me with this, solve this. Like this is now, there's trillions of dollars of economic value resting on this bundler. And so we have helped historically a lot of those authors get a lot more support, get a lot more contributions from internal team members, get really high quality feedback that's internal. So a good example is we're building an open source project and we really put it through the ringer before we launch a new stable version. The number of canary releases of Next.js that we've run on Vercel.com before a new stable goes out is kind of like awe-inspiring. And by the way, from time to time, it means that some bug might slip into prod. And we take that burden ourselves instead of our customers. So it's part of that process of like, we have a problem, we solve it, we build confidence in the solution, we export it out into the world, and we want to do more of that. But obviously, we are also very, as I said in the beginning, we're very, very mindful of not stretching ourselves too thin with the product surface.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Amazing. Amy, do you want to take a question from the audience? There's a couple that's come in.
Yeah, it looks like one from Mary. She says, I loved the conversation you had with Jack Altman on his podcast. Something you spoke about.
By the way, I don't know if you noticed.
This is something you spoke about with how the rise of agentic, we're seeing a reduction in the negative feedback loop of errors when coding. You mentioned noticing that users and customers are already starting to not see errors anymore, even when they're clear in the logs. So instead they are looking for outcomes.
Totally.
How is Vercel thinking about that when building for both seasoned devs and non-technical folks?
Excellent question, because I really believe that the things that should get to the human are the things where like the AI has exhausted every possibility. Like, all right, we need your attention, we need your intervention. Like, please help me out here, right? That's at least a vision for the future. One concrete example of how this is going to show up in Vercel is that a lot of the build errors and really annoying, I hear you all, by the way, really annoying emails we send when the prod deploy fails. We will send you an email like, hey, the deploy failed. And then you open the logs and it might be something trivial. It might be that your PNPM log file is stale, or it might be that you had a lot of confidence in your patch and then at the very last second, you forgot one minor type annotation and the whole thing fails. And by the way, we kind of love this category of failure. This is something where like the other day I wrote like a whole essay replying to DHH. Like it's like the meme of the really long phone, because I really like build processes and compilers and type checkers. I really like that the pipeline is you write some code, it goes through like an extensive, let's optimize this thing for the user process, and then it goes out into the world. But sometimes it can be annoying and it can slow you down. So one of the ways in which we want to deploy this vision of agentic cloud or agentic development is that we want to catch a lot of those issues and solve them for you. So here's a PR because we noticed that there was a trivial build failure. And we want to get really ambitious with this. So here's a PR because you had a client-side exception. Here's a PR because your function crashed. And a lot of those are actually solvable by even like less than frontier AI. So you would be surprised how much of the opportunity in the world is in connecting these systems together and doing what some people have called context engineering, rather than like evolving the what people call like the IQ of the model. Like even with the models that we have today, like there's just so much opportunity to like make people's lives easier and see fewer errors. So that's a little bit for like the technical audience, like people that are shipping with GitHub and their change goes into a PR, and then the Vercel check triggers, and then we can auto fix a bunch of errors. The runtime aspect, what I called out, like the page crashes once it's in production and then we solve the problem, I think that's going to be super useful for both developers and vibe coders. I actually think that the future of vibe coding, for it to get more robust, it's going to have to rely more on this like runtime information, meaning the agent might go and test your application, or it might be in prod and then a bunch of users use it and then it has some errors and then it goes back to the agent. So the future involves making this loop even more context rich. And we are bringing a lot of these ideas already into V0. So one that I'm really, really, really excited about is one of our teammates, Ido, shipped an epic improvement to the agent so that it can identify accessibility and contrast problems. So the agent can look at the thing it rendered and say like, I can barely read this shit. Like, here's the fix. So I'm really excited about this because like the bar of the quality of the web can actually get higher if you have agents that are dedicated, like looking at the outputs. As an inexperienced designer, I used to obviously I've always liked black is the main color I wear. I always would ship this like black and gray pages with barely any contrast. And now we can actually have an agent that's like, I see what you're cooking there, but like not good enough. Here's the fix. So imagine taking that to a greater extent. It's not just looking at contrast, it's looking at errors, it's testing out the application, it's looking at performance and suggesting fixes.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for the question, Mary. Another question that's come in that's kind of similar, and I'm sure you can speak more to this, is how do you see Vercel's compute and storage service offerings evolve to support swarms of AI agents?
Great question. So this is the first time I'm using this term in public, which I'm really excited about. I think the future of infrastructure is what I call anti-fragile infrastructure. So there's one fundamental truth of AI, which is that AI is imperfect, probabilistic, stochastic, which means AI will make mistakes. That's a given. Like, let's get that out into the world, right? Like, this is why you see a lot of the coding agents that run on your computer be extremely cautious. Like, please confirm 20 times that you really want to run this command, because us, the authors of the AI, we know that it might fail. And so one thing that Vercel is doing to, make that problem less of a problem is we put out the Vercel Sandbox, which is a compute primitive that allows you to run untrusted code and minimize the blast radius of something going wrong. Of course, as a developer, you still have to be careful about what tools and what information and what environment variables you put into the sandbox, but we're able to like constrain the blast radius there. And you can think about this paradigm moving forward, right? Like there's a lot that we can do to make AI safer and more robust. But also, we should be thinking about, hey, like in the event of something going wrong, how do we recover? And that's where the idea of anti-fragile infrastructure comes in. So one idea there is, for example, and you've seen a version of this in your own life, because anytime you use Git is sort of designed to give you the quote unquote file system sandbox so that you can feel okay making mistakes. If for example, I use Git stash a lot, popping and applying, so that I can feel good about like, oh, I copy that into my clipboard. I can make a bunch of changes and it's in a safe space where I can bring it back. So imagine the agents of the future operating in infrastructure that can be perfectly rolled back and forward. And that would apply both for the compute infrastructure, obviously, but also storage. A good example here is anytime an agent deploys, Vercel can do instant rollback, which like goes to an extreme extent to minimize the amount of production disruption. Within 300 to 500 milliseconds worldwide, we rolled back everything. We rolled back the CDN configuration. We rolled back the CDN caches. We rolled back middleware. We rolled back the compute. We rolled back static assets. And so that's a small example of like, hey, like reality is humans have also been making mistakes. And so Vercel's thought, let's embrace the mistake. And let's make it such that if there is a mistake, instant rollback, makes you feel good. We've even heard this from like very large enterprises. So like, this has been my favorite feature in Vercel because like it did remove a lot of fear from our team. We know that like we can take ever so slightly, we can be bolder because we can roll back in 300 milliseconds. You've also heard us talk a lot about flags, the Flags SDK, which is basically a framework agnostic and flag provider agnostic SDK for introducing the concept of feature flags into your applications. I think feature flags are going to be a very big deal in the future. You could imagine telling your agent, for perhaps through agents.md, hey, agent, anytime you cook on something new, please use feature flags, because I'm kind of uncertain of the quality of your code. We don't tell the agent that, but like that's what we're thinking. Like, hey, like it's better to roll out things that the agent cooks progressively. And then we can toggle flags on and off to contain the blast radius of failure. So that's another example of like the anti-fragility of how you evolve product changes. You have to be more defensive, and you also have to have infrastructure that supports that kind of experimental, fast-moving pace.
Yeah, the community loves that metaphor. Thank you so much.
At Vercel, we have so much on the hobby plan, and with the changes to pro, we're giving a lot away that we maybe would have been able to make money on before, and kind of shifting that. How do you justify some of these features and things that we give away for free that are helpful for the community, but maybe not directly revenue generating?
Yeah, I always thought the point of Vercel is to give access to people to the cutting edge deployment infrastructure of the giants of the web to as many people as possible. So even what I just talked about, like the idea that a single developer working on a side project could be using feature flags and global edge config and middleware, like these are the tools of the giants of the internet. And so the whole point of Vercel was like, we can give these tools to everybody. On a long enough timeline, because of the size of Vercel and because we get so many large companies and so many teams and so many startups that are building legitimate high growth and profitable businesses, the cost of maintaining that free tier does go down. There's a real economies of scale for Vercel. And the reality is also that the usage of these individuals in relative to the usage of the largest users of Vercel, that include now 2 of the top 20 websites of the internet, is minuscule, right? Of course, For an individual, it's and you're getting to learn the platform, and you're starting your first project, or rauchg.com, for example, which is actually a relatively high traffic website that I host on the hobby tier of Vercel. It's amazing. And so we try to find a balance between like, can we give you enough that you can truly learn how to build exceptional projects? Can we give you enough that it becomes your durable space on the internet? So I've never looked at this plan as a trial. I've always looked at it as, this is your durable corner of the internet. This is where you host your rauchg.com. This is where you host your first AI application, your first agent. For example, you should be able to host on Vercel like your personal agents, like the agents that do a ton of work for you on as a bot on Discord or Slack, or as a menu bar app of your macOS application. You should be able to have like Rauch GPT, and it does things for you, like, or of course for me, but yeah, your own. And that's kind of how we look at the free tier. And then progressively, I think also businesses should be able to start on the free tier. And then this is what we're embracing, the usage-based model. As they use more, we size them up into the tiers and say, hey, like, this is where you want to build a business. What we just quote unquote corrected that I'm really excited about is that there was too much of a gap between what we call the enterprise tier and what you can self-serve. People really wanted to grow on their own within that journey from your first request in Vercel or your first function in Vercel to a profitable business. And that's what we've fixed with the Pro plan. And there's more to come, because there's a bunch of enterprise features that we're also going to bring to this self-serve model.
Super excited. I just wanted to say my blog and my personal website has been on Vercel for years now. So it definitely is like my little corner of the internet.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I really want to talk about V0. And a lot of people in the community also want to know, what is your V0 workflow? Do you have any tips in the community? And I also know you wanted to show some projects too.
Yeah, when you asked me that question earlier, the anti-fragile infrastructure thing has been on my mind. It's like, hey, I have to like write a banger Twitter thread about this. And the other one that's been on my mind is like, I want to show how I use V0 at Vercel. And one of the things I did Zeet a while ago was I look at V0 as a communication tool. And so whenever you yap on Slack or Zoom or Meet to somebody and say like, I would like to see this thing work different, I always tell people like, you could yap to V0 instead. So I've been trying to live true to that, mantra myself at Vercel. So I wanted to show you a few examples. And one that I'm excited about is, you might have seen the landing page for the Vercel AI Gateway. One of our design engineers, Logan, cooked an amazing sort of animation on top of the code snippet that shows you how easy it is to switch between models with one API, the API token. That's the whole value prop of the AI Gateway. And it's so funny because like, I kind of mistreated the AI here. Sorry, AI overlords. I called it horrible. But I was talking about the output. It was horrible. So this one's a really cool one because I replicated a Vercel landing page. And again, going back to communication, I wanted to communicate two things to our VP of design, the one and only Mamuso. I wanted to tell him, look, as Vercel becomes more of a multi-product company, I want to have a navigation hierarchy that feels like it's like a company within Vercel. So I cooked on a very basic version of this sub-navigation concept. You might have seen something like this on like Stripe or Apple, where like you go to like iPhone and then it feels like it's its own little universe with its own little sections, whatever. So that was one of the things I wanted to communicate. The other one that I was really excited about is that I expect, it's a bad version, but it got pretty close to what the end result was going to be, which is this animation that shows you like brings attention to the fact that like AI Gateway is multi-provider, in that it's multi protocol, or so that you can use it with the AI SDK, or you can use it with the, and then so I gave this to the team, and then the team cooked on a version that's 100 times better, and it shipped. So really good example of like sort of like V0 for like design, marketing, and a CEO that doesn't want to go into a Slack thread and try to say, imagine if the model thing did this, and like I could just tell the AI and like I can actually like do it myself. This one's really cool because we were debugging a performance issue, and I think this was with a customer. I can't remember what it was exactly, and like we were breaking down timing information from a response header. And I wanted to, again, communicate to the team, like let's break down where this time went and like this 800 milliseconds and whatever. So it's like a really cool way to like create a data visualization. We're seeing a lot of emergent use cases of V0 where like it basically becomes like your business intelligence tool on steroids, like your dashboarding tool or your like Excel data viz thing, but on steroids. So that one was really cool. This one I'm quite proud of because I was trying to actually, maybe this one hasn't shipped yet. So like it's kind of a little thing that I'm really, really proud of because in a past life, I created something called text box list. We can pull it up later, but it was basically a MooTools library for what you're going to see here. So I've been telling the team that I think it's really cool that V0 deploys on Vercel because we're giving the vibe coder or the non-technical person the infrastructure that hosts the largest websites on the internet. It's kind of like an unfair advantage, right? Like you vibe code, but you're really building on the infrastructure of the giants. And I also like that people recognize the URLs that are built with V0. So how do you solve the conundrum of the fact that the URL is .vercel.app and it's also built with V0? So when you go to the add domain interface, a lot of people were customizing this and blowing out the V0 prefix. And I was getting upset because I like to say that it's V0. And so what I did is I proposed this tokenizer input where you can still nuke the V0 thing. So I nuked it there. And I can call this Pauline's creation.vercel.app. But also, if I don't care to not hide the fact that I created with V0, maybe I'm proud of it, I can keep it. So I did Command Z there to undo. So I kind of went nuts here, right? Like I created a tokenizer to show the team what could go into the product. It's really robust. It supports all of the keyboard interactions and undo and redo. So you might find this in the product if I convince the powers that be that this is a good idea. Maybe it's not. So that was a little one that I showed. I know we might be running out of time, but I have so many of these. This one's actually kind of silly, but like when OpenAI GPT-OSS came out, I wanted to do the Pelican test. The Pelican test by Simon Willison is you tell a new model to render an SVG of a pelican riding a bicycle. And so again, like this is just a really good way of representing outputs in a cool, well-designed way without writing like HTML by hand. So this is the side-by-side, by the way, breaking news. Like this is 20B and this is 120B. And I actually do think this is a really good, true super intelligence test for models. If models can like draw a true pelican in pure SVG, I'll be really, really impressed. Let's see if I have another. I'll show one last one. Ooh, I'm really proud of this one. So I was going back and forth with Henry, who's a design engineer and the V0 team about like, I wanted to give, this super meta, is like designing V0 inside V0. I wanted to give him a sense of like, how can we give V0 more real estate? How can we give the content more real estate? Because our job as builders of tooling in general is to get the F out of the way. So you might have seen like, this is the Vercel toolbar. The agonizing amount of iteration that went into making it as minimal as possible. And we called it, the internal project name was Demure toolbar, when the Demure team was all the rage. So we want to get out of the way. And so this is super meta. So like, you might have seen that now, like there's like a lot of space for my creation. That was because we were going back and forth on this design of a better sidebar. that would just get out of the way. And I was getting frustrated writing it into Slack. So I was like, Henry, like, this is kind of like and Henry made it a lot better because like now we have this super cool like drag thing. But yeah, I could keep going on, but like this gives you a glimpse of like how the behind the scenes of Vercel with V0 happens.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say, I feel like we need another session of you just going through all of your projects.
Honestly, we should.
Yeah.
We should. It's easier than like me like cropping videos and tweeting it out. So
yeah, it's so good.
I love seeing like all the ways that you and everyone else at the company has used V0 to try to maybe prototype or like just show like, oh, this is in my head. How do I get it to everyone else?
Our people team, our recruiting team, our sales engineering team, like everybody's cooking. You guys, I've seen a lot of your V0s, community team. So everybody's cooking nonstop on this thing.
I'm wondering, like, how do you see the future for V0 with like, especially non-technical people getting more into it? Do you see teams building entirely in V0, or do you think it's going to be maybe longer into the future where people are still kind of pulling it out and manually coding the final touches?
Yeah, our ambition is to go from prototype to production.
Yeah.
But having the right ejection points where it makes sense, right? If you're building something really, really ambitious, today there is a good ejection point from V0 to Cursor, from V0 to Cloud Code. It's totally fine. And you can hand it off to a developer or a development team, or you can get the help of a developer by using the Git integration within V0. But there's also a lot of people that have a lot of runway within just the V0 cinematic universe. They're going to prod all the way. And as I mentioned, it's backed by infrastructure that's really robust. So when you hit that deploy button or that publish button, it's going to Vercel. So there's going to be more and more and more production use cases. We're seeing the emergence of a lot of internal tool use cases. And these are internal tools that are going into production. There's a company, amazing, developer favorite that has 1,000 sales reps that are now using V0, a V0 tool that was written up entirely in no code, so like prompts, and it's now in production supporting a workforce of 1,000 people. And so we are seeing go all the way from prompt to the critical path, and I think we're going to continue to see that more, especially as the underlying models keep getting better.
100% agree. I also there's so many examples in the community of people who have shared, like, I am running a business that literally has just been built on V0. We see these stories like time and time again. Gee, that's all we have time for today. Community has loved it.
But
yeah, we could keep going on. We need to get you back on here. This has been like a community favorite. Any additional remarks before we close you off?
No, I mean, keep sending your questions, the things you ship, let us know, give us feedback. We love building with you all. So
amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Great questions, everyone. Thank you for sharing them ahead and live during the session. And you can join us next week. CAP has another episode of Open Source Stories on Monday. And we also have an observability session. And go to community.com or community.vercel.com/events to see the events listing for all of the upcoming future events.
I also wanted to say, if you do want to jump on here and share projects that you've built on V0 or anything that you're building in the Vercel ecosystem, share them with us because we have an open calendar and we'd love to have you on stage. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and we'll see you here next week. Thanks.